What's going on, YouTube? Thank you for joining us after dark yet again for another episode. Look, I was doing some Bible study today, right? Today we were reading Proverbs, right? I was reading Proverbs. I was reading chapter 18, and I was super invested in this chapter, right? Because there was something I was going through personally, right? And I want to talk a little bit about it. I want to be super transparent with you guys, and I want to read what I've taken notes on so far, as well as read further and allow us to do a Bible study together to try to read and comprehend what it's trying to tell us, right? So allow me to start with my own personal story. Now, when I was younger, around the age of 16 years old, right? Just for reference, I'm 19 years old currently. Around the age of 15, 16 years old is when I started my self-improvement journey, right? Started actually honing in and trying my best to really grow as a person. And I think I really did a great job of doing that over the years, right? Now, as you guys know, this is a never-ending journey, but at the time, what I thought the best way to do that was to isolate myself, to completely grow away from the people around me, and to isolate myself and to spend as much time alone as possible. I avoided a lot of human interaction. I stayed in the house. I stayed away from people. I didn't talk to a lot of people. I lost a lot of social skills, right? And I regained those social skills and communication skills, but there was one thing that has yet to leave me that I didn't know was haunting me, and I'm now realizing that is a big flaw of mine. And I think in doing so, in the self improvement journey that I went on, I developed a little bit of an ego that I didn't know I had until literally recently. I mean, recent as in days ago. Days ago, I came to this realization that I had a ego weighing in the back of my mind that I wasn't even aware of. An ego that prevented me from interacting socially with others. An ego that prevented me from making certain connections. An ego that made me look at people differently in a way that I don't want to look at people, right? So let me break it down even further. I think this ego comes from me spending so much time working on myself and growing as a person, right? When you spend so much time by yourself, working on yourself, you learn a lot about yourself. There isn't anything about me that somebody can tell me that I don't already know. That's not true. See, that even a little bit of the ego peeked out there when I said that. That's not true. You see how it's a work in progress. You got to be able to realize things. That was a very ego thing for me to say. That's not true. I'm sure there's definitely people who could tell me things about myself that I don't already know. But I've spent so much time working on myself that I'm very well informed of what kind of person I am, what are my flaws, what are my weaknesses and my strengths. So you see, I caught myself real time. So you know I'm not lying when I talk about this journey of mine. So basically, the focus is that there was an ego laying in the back of my mind that I wasn't even fully aware of. This ego has prevented me from making a lot of relationships, right? And that is why it's becoming a problem, is because I realized I was struggling to connect with others simply because of this ego laying in the back of my mind. This ego that maybe I'm better than these people because of how much time I spent working on myself and growing myself. That my mind is shaped so differently and my mind is so developed that I can't even stand to have a conversation with some of these people. I can't even stand to speak to some of these people. And that's a very bad thing. And I didn't know that until recently. Prior to now, I thought that I was doing myself a very good thing by protecting my energy, right? Protecting myself from people who could potentially bring me down or potentially ruin my mind, or whatever the case may be. I thought that was the problem. But I have a deeper understanding now, and I want to share some of that with you today, right? First, by saying that it comes, one of the things boils down to strength, right? Strength as an individual. If I know I'm confident in myself, right? Confident that the work that I put in, right? Confident in the wisdom that God has provided me through his word and through my actions, right? If I have the strength, I should be able to combat the enemy or anybody trying to come into my circle and destroy me. I should be able to combat that through a force that's kind of not physical, right? I should be able to combat that through the wisdom that I have. I should be able to push them away in ways that don't cause me to, I guess, sacrifice what I have built. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I shouldn't have to avoid interaction with these people, but rather I should have the strength within to not allow them to destroy me if I allow them in. That's what I'm trying to say. The problem doesn't lie with allowing people in. The problem lies with the strength in yourself, right? We have to hold ourselves accountable. There's a certain accountability that is necessary to grow in this area. We have to hold ourselves accountable and say, I shouldn't be folding under this kind of pressure, right? So if I do let someone in, I should be able to quickly realize if they're trying to take away from me or they're trying to add to my life and quickly make those adjustments. But I can't be afraid to let them in the first place. The true work happens when they're in the circle. If I let someone in the circle because at face value they seem like a great person, right? I shouldn't be judging them all off the rip, basically, is what I'm trying to say. If I let them in and they show their true colors and their colors that I can't work with, then changes might need to be made. But I can also make an attempt to help them understand where their flaws are, right? What could potentially set somebody off. Now, if they're not willing to take in that information, then that is completely on them, right? I allow God to, I will pray for them and ask God to give them the awareness and the guidance that they need, right? But that's not up to me to decide whether or not someone is worthy just off of first interaction, right? I should be able to accept everybody upon first meeting them, right? And that is a big problem I have. And again, I knew I had this, but I didn't identify it as an issue. That is the problem. It's one thing to be aware of something, but if you can't be truthful and expose it for what it is, because now I see that it is an issue, it is a problem, it is something that can steer people away from even wanting to be near me, right? Because when it came to meeting new people, I was not super open. I was very closed off, and a lot of people would tell me, Isaiah, you don't have a very inviting personality. And I would say, well, okay, I'm not a very inviting person, right? And I was honest in that regard, but I didn't see it as a problem. That is the issue. I didn't see that it was an issue that I didn't have an inviting personality. I didn't see that it was an issue that I would have a face that would make you not want to approach me. I didn't see that as an issue. Now I understand that there is actually a problem that lies within that. Why should I should not want people to be afraid to approach me. I should not want people to feel as if they have to earn my presence, right? Because I'm not that mighty of a person. I am not that powerful of an individual that someone should feel that they need to earn the right to be in my presence, right? So I didn't know I had this big ego, and this is an ego that I now have to actively work on dropping because this is a very bad thing. And never in my life did I think I would allow myself to drop this ego. Seriously, because that's something I worked hard to build. Come to find out, I was building towards something that could be potentially detrimental to my growth. Because when you have an ego, it's harder for you to learn. When you have an ego, it's harder for you to grow. When you have an ego, it's hard for you to connect. When you have an ego, a lot of things are closed off to you. You lose access to a lot of things. And when you have an ego, you also lose some of your relationship with God, right? Because there has to be a certain humility that comes within, a certain humbleness that you have to be able to submit yourself to be able to learn and grow. And I am now realizing that I was a struggle of mine, and now that I can open my eyes to it, I feel like I opened that ability to follow, right? All my time in my life I've been growing to be a leader, and there's nothing wrong with being a leader. I think being a leader is a great thing. You should think like a leader. But at the same time, there has to be a certain humility and a humbleness inside of you that says, I know I am not the top of the crop. I know I am not the man. I am a man in this world. I have value for sure. I have a gift for sure that I can share with others, but I am not the man. I am not the one and only, and I am not an almighty power. I am just a man. No different from this man, no different from that man, no different from this woman, no different from that woman. I am an individual on earth just like they are. We all have different gifts to share within the world, but it is almost disrespectful for me to not allow others to experience my gift or to not experience the gift of others that can help all of us, right? So I have to let go of this ego to allow myself to connect with other people. I know that was a long talk, but I really wanted y'all to understand where I'm coming from when I'm reading these scriptures. Before I even read the scriptures, where I'm coming from, what I'm looking to learn, what I'm looking to understand, what I'm looking to understand. And I want you guys to pay attention so that you can also grow and learn and understand what I'm about to read. So we're going to be reading. I wonder if I can get a better angle on this. Let's see. Nah, it's just going to have to do. It's just going to have to do. Today we're going to be reading Proverbs chapter 18. We might go even a little bit more. I have like 15 minutes to finish this video. Something like that. I might go over because this is a very important topic. And I'd much rather y'all get this information than for me to stay exactly on schedule. So look. Chapter 18. Through desire a man, having separated himself, seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. I think that's the word. I don't know how to say it. Through desire a man, having separated himself. So I talked about the isolation period of my life where I didn't allow others in my circle and I stayed to myself, right? So that's what it's talking about, having separated himself. So I separated myself. Seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. So let me go back to the definition because I searched up the definition and I'm sure it says it in the bio or in the Bible. Sorry. Intermeddleth. Let's see the definition of that so we can understand what we're reading. I want everybody to look to really understand what we're reading here today. All right. Intermeddleth. Let's see. Okay, watch out, because if you drop my camera, then my video is going to be ruined, bro. Let's see. So, in the verse, intermeddleth refers to someone who withdraws from others to chase their own desires, right? Get deeply involved in knowledge, but often in an unhealthy, prideful, and obsessive way. Isolating themselves from wise counsel, chasing knowledge for their own gain or ego, ignoring correction from others. This is a problem that I'm now understanding that I was having, chasing knowledge for my own gain or ego. Now, as I started making these videos, I started sharing that knowledge that I had to help others, and that helped me in a way. That really helped me to chase something bigger than what I was chasing, right? The knowledge for my own gain, right? So it is to withdraw from others to chase their own desires and get deeply involved with knowledge, but often for unhealthy or prideful reasons. So it's important that we understand that. So seeketh and intermeddleth with all wisdom. So that, right? Isolation can do more harm than good. That's what I'm trying to get y'all to understand with this first verse. Isolation can actually do more harm than good because I thought isolation was a great thing, right? And I still think that isolating yourself at certain periods or certain seasons of your life could potentially help you, but for very short periods of time, because I've learned to understand, and you will also learn to understand as you go along this process, that you cannot do everything on your own. It is physically impossible. So when you isolate yourself, you are literally taking yourself away from the potential of learning, understanding, and growing as an individual. So that's the first verse. Isolation can do more harm than good. You close off others and seek answers on your own as a fool does. So you isolate yourself from others to seek answers on your own, right? I just explained why that's difficult to do. But also, when it says seeketh and intermeddleth, I hope I'm saying that right, with all wisdom, to intake wisdom and seek wisdom for your own good, for prideful reasons. So you have to ask yourself, am I seeking wisdom only to say that I'm better than others? Am I seeking wisdom only to say to others that I am higher than them, that I am better than them? to say that I understand life better than them, to tell them, like, you see what I'm saying? Am I seeking wisdom for the right reasons? Am I seeking wisdom to grow in this world and to help and bring others up with me? Or am I seeking wisdom to separate myself from the people around me, to isolate, to say, this is everybody and this is me because I know what I'm talking about. I have a strong understanding. So are you seeking wisdom to build a stronger relationship with everybody, to help grow, to help push for the bigger picture? Or are you seeking wisdom to isolate yourself and separate yourself from other people, to say, I am not like y'all? You got to understand where I'm coming from. So that, just that verse alone is super big, right? As I turn this page, you see I took a lot more notes. So there's a lot to talk about. A fool hath no delight in understanding, but that his heart may discover himself. So what a fool does is to commit to discovering things on his own, to commit to learning by himself in a way that isolates himself from others, right? Rather than with other people, right? So a fool hath no delight in understanding. If you truly wanted to understand, you would seek that understanding in a true way, right? Through experience, action, and by also seeking it through answers, right? It says somewhere in here, I don't want to skip ahead, but it talks also in this chapter about not being afraid to seek wisdom. It's one thing to sit back and hope the wisdom comes to you, but it's another thing to be someone who goes out and seeks wisdom, to have a question about a specific part of life and to actually get up and go find the answer to that problem, to pray to God, to pray about it and say, Lord, I ask for your guidance as I push forward to find certain answers of this life. Lord, I ask for your guidance to guide me in the right direction. Lord, I ask for your reassurance to assure me that I'm making the right move in my attempts to grow as a person. Lord, I ask that you correct me if I do anything offline that brings me far from you, Lord. I say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Right? Just to pray about it and then to get up and go seek it is a whole different thing on its own. When the wicked cometh, then cometh also contempt, and with ignominy reproach. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, and the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook. That's a lot of things to say, but when you read your Bible, right? And I hope this encourages you guys to read. Look at the way I take notes, look at the way I highlight. When you read the Bible, read to truly understand, right? Pray about it before you open your book. Pray for guidance. Pray that the words that you can feel the presence of the Lord as you read, right? A lot of times in the Bible, they use metaphors. They use things to help you understand and picture how important it is. That you guys learned in school about metaphors, right? The reason why metaphors are so powerful is because it can tell you, it can help you picture how strong of how do I say it? Strong of an impression it's trying to make. So like, let's give you an example. Let's see. A search up some good metaphors that give you an example of how metaphors are used in common language, so you can understand that when you see these things in the Bible, it is only used to give you a true picture of how strong of a message it's trying to intend, rather than just using casual language. Let's see. Common metaphors. I don't know why my stuff is taking so long to load. I want to tell you guys some common metaphors. Time is money. That's a metaphor to tell you about how valuable time is. He's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. If I tell you that someone's carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, that tells you he has a lot of stress and responsibility, right? You can picture it deeper. It explains the deeper message behind what it is rather than using casual words. If I say he has a lot of stress and responsibility, you'd be like, all right, cool, don't we all? If he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, you're like, dang, I can see that's a lot of stress. There's a million of these, but I want you guys to understand that. So when it says the words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, in the wellspring of wisdom as a flowing brook, is trying to tell you how important the words that we use are, how impactful the words we use are, right? When you think of deep waters, when I think of deep waters, I think of sinking, floating, however you want to think of it, right? So use those to try to make a connection of what it's saying. So when I think of the words of the words of a man's mouth are as deep waters, I think of an impact, right? Somebody can sink into the words of a person, right? And they can indulge in the words, right? So the words are very important in a sense that what you say to someone can impact their entire life. I can walk up to somebody right now that I don't even know and say something so disgusting to them, and it can completely change the course of their lives, negatively or positively. Yeah, I'm a little behind schedule. It's all right. So yeah, our words are very impactful, right? I can say something to somebody that can completely change the course of their life, negatively or positively. That's why we are not to use our words carelessly, right? So let's see what I wrote in here. A man's word is powerful in many concepts, in many contexts, and shouldn't be used with foolery. So that is the key takeaway. Be careful with how you use your words, right? Because they can really hurt somebody, or they can really uplift somebody. So make sure that not a word is wasted that comes out of your mouth. It is not good to accept the person of the wicked, to overthrow the righteous in judgment. A fool's lips enter into contention, and his mouth calleth for strokes. A fool's mouth is his destruction, and his lips are the snare of his soul. All it takes is one careless act of speech to completely change the course of anything. All it takes is one wrong word to throw someone the wrong way in making a decision about you, about what kind of person you are. That is why it says a fool's mouth is his destruction. A fool's mouth. That's why you are to be careful with the words you use. The words you use can be very impactful, negatively or positively. Remember that. So be careful what you say, because it can completely change the way somebody perceives you. The words of a talebearer are his wounds, and they go down into the innermost parts of the belly. He also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster. The name of the Lord is a strong tower, and the righteous runneth into it and is safe. So the name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe, right? So I think to me that talks about coming back to the Lord, right? If you feel uncertain or feel uncomfortable about what you're doing or what you're pursuing, ask for the guidance of the Lord. Come back to where it is safe, where you can ask, where you can wonder, where it's okay to be curious and not understand, because the world is never going to be as accepting and as understanding as the Lord is. So when you're feeling unsure, always come back to the Lord and ask for understanding. The rich man's wealth is his strong city, and as an high wall his own conceit. Before destruction the heart of the man is haughty, and before honor is humility. All right. Now I want to search up the definition of haughty again, because I had to do that when I was reading. Let's see. You could probably guess if you just use context clues. Before destruction, the heart of the man is haughty. So before destruction, and before honor is humility. So we talked about humility and truly humbling yourself as a person and understanding that you are not better than anybody. I had to understand that no matter how smart I am, no matter how gifted I am, no matter how talented, no matter how hard I work, I am no better than anybody around me. And I should not act as if I am and treat others as if I am, right? So it is true. You have to be humble, submit to humility before honor. If you want to be honored, you have to be humble. You have to understand that you are no better than anybody else. Haughty means proud in a way that shows you think you're better than others. Arrogant, boastful, or looking down on people. I didn't know this was a problem of mine until understanding what was going on around my life. I sat there and I wondered why I struggled socially to connect with people around me. I came to an understanding that there was an ego line there that I was not aware of. Proud in a way that shows you think you're better than others. I thought I was better than others without even thinking about it. Subconsciously, I thought I was better than others simply because of the work I was doing in my own life. So, before destruction in the heart of man is haughty. So, this leads destruction. Before destruction, it is this in your heart of thinking that you're better than others that leads to destruction. Arrogance, pridefulness, conceited, snobbish, superior minded, treating others as if they're beneath you leads to the destruction of yourself, destruction of your heart. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. So before I even finish that, let's go to some of these notes I wrote. Being overly prideful leads to one's downfall. I see this in my social life as I have developed an ego. It is only when one humbles himself that he can reach happiness. So next one, he that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. He who makes assumptions is a fool, jumping to conclusions, interrupting. This man can't reach true wisdom. So, he that answereth in a matter before he heareth it. Someone who jumps to conclusions. Someone is quick to make assumptions, right? Without truly having an understanding of what the matter is or what is going on. This could come down to gossip. This could come down to fear. This could come down to so many things. But to make an assumption of what is true before having a true understanding of what is going on, that is the work of a fool. It is folly and shame unto him. So make sure you are not quick to jump to conclusions without having an understanding of what is going on. This can go to so much things. Anytime we overthink a situation, think about this verse. If you ever are overthinking, come back to Proverbs chapter 18 verse 13. He that answereth in a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him. You should seek to only gain understanding through actual experience and not through outside sources, right? So let's say you don't know if you should do this, or you want to do this, but you have a fear towards it or an overthinking towards it, right? Remember that you should not have any feelings towards something or to shy away from it if you have yet to experience it in this sense. So in a positive manner, right? Not nothing negatively. I'm not saying that you shouldn't stay away from drugs because you've never done them. You know, just be smart about it. Use the wisdom of the Lord to truly separate where you should apply this in your life. Now that is the extent of where I read in my Bible study today, right? And I'm gonna leave the rest of Proverbs. I do want to read more of Proverbs. I think I want to save that for another video because this is a really good book. I might even go back in Proverbs because I started Proverbs 18. So I might even go back to the beginning of Proverbs and we could read the whole book together. But I hope this video gave y'all some insight. This is a longer video, 33 minutes, but it's packed with information. And I hope you guys take this and really decide to understand and use this in your own lives to drop that ego and to progress in this world. So I'm going to see y'all in the next one. Peace out.